said at the very beginning, this is just an off day. Crew Chief, thanks for coming in and saving my ass. I totally forgot I was muted. Oh my gosh. I said at the very beginning, I was like, man, I just got up today and everything's just so off. You know, people have that from time to time, and it's just like, I come on here every day now. And it's just like, oh, okay, I got to go do this. And so I'm sitting here eating my breakfast. I get done with my workout. I get done with the things that I'm doing during the day, just to get, not ready for this, but it's just the way I like to do these types of streams is that it's a fun way to spend my lunch hour, not that I'm like doing anything, other than just chilling out with my son and hanging out on a beach and then watching a few things here and there. Like the other day, Crew Chief, when you showed up and you were like, hey, what about this thing with Yay and all that stuff? And I was like, honestly, at that point, I had never seen it. I hadn't seen it yet, right? So I went and watched it, and I was just like, oh, so what you got here? Hold on 1 second. Where's my... Oh, I closed it. Let's see. So I'm stuck on... E-benefits call, waiting 10 minutes now. I think I could be waiting for the next 40 minutes easy. Ooh, e-benefits is a joke. I'm so sorry for that, bud. Yeah, calling in to anything that has to do with the VA for anyone else who's here in the chat that's watching stuff, like the VA is a whole shit show of itself. It's a very bizarre fuck you to the military, because they're like, hey, these civilians are going to take care of you now. It's like, but they're used to taking care of military veterans. It's like, yeah, but they don't ever have to worry about getting fired. Like, we can't complain that they're full of shit. Like, if we go, hey, no, this is bullshit. We don't like this. We don't want this. They're like, oh, thanks for that complaint, but, and then they just throw it in the trash. There's this, I don't know if you've ever seen Parks and Rec. There's a character on there, Ron Swanson, who goes to this vegan store where they're giving out like vegan bacon, and he just shows up and he's like he's like, yeah, I'll try some of that vegan bacon, and he give it to him, and he's like, dude, I eat meat every day, fuck this, and he takes it and he just throws it in the trash, because he knows that he's like, in his mind, he's like, I have to get rid of anything that even resembles this fakery, and so as the veteran, it's like, you sort of look at the VA, and I'm just, that's what they sort of do. You're like, hey, here's my problem. They're like, that's great. I don't care. Trump made it so that we can get them fired now. Good, sir. Since 2017. Yeah, but it doesn't. I remember being back in 2017, and I remember having to go through a bunch of horse shit, and then, it doesn't really happen. Like, I remember being hung up. Like, I remember they hung up on me. Straight up. Like, I was like, hey, your doctor misread this x-ray, and yeah, my hand's broken, by the way. I had it checked out by not just me, but other, and they were like, oh yeah, you were right. I was like, yeah, but this doctor sent me home like it was nothing. Are you going to talk? You're like, is what's happening to this? What's going on with this? And they're like, oh, well, we'll look into it. We'll take a look. Of course, they don't do shit. This guy's been working there for umpteen years, and he's like, oh yeah, I do a good job. So yeah, I got one of my shrinks fired for being disrespectful and negligent. But at the same time, it's like there's this feeling that they have this air of, if I get a job for this particular side of the government, like no one gets fired. I'm glad that happened for you. I'm glad that you were able to hold one of these douchebags accountable. I wish, like, what would you say? And this is tying this back into the main reason that I stream this. How do you think, like, even if we are being used as a test bed for some of the new products that are coming out, why not test AI governance on the military first? Like, why not say, hey, the VA program is going to be completely automated, meaning all of our best technology is going there first, meaning you are going to be assessed on at a psychological level that no other human has been assessed at, and we are going to see if it works. For me, I'd be like, sign me up today, as long as I get access to how this stuff is how this stuff works. I'm not sitting here going, oh, let's just give you a personality test and call it a day and say, oh yeah, he's just hard to get along with. I'm like, no, I want something that's going to react to me no different than an AI does, that sits there and goes, hey, I can understand the context, I can understand where you're going, and both of our goals, whether it be the automated concepts of augmented intelligence or me, the same goal is like, hey, I want a nice relieving access to the rest of my life. That's what I want. And if that's the AI's goal too, then I'll go for it. Yeah, remember, I'm Air Force. More think willing to talk to person in charge of this whole region if necessary and tell them how inadequate they are. Yeah, I was Air Force too, bud. It's like the problem is, like, for me, and challenging the hierarchy and saying, hey, the problem is most people in the Air Force know the regs. And that was one of the things, like, everyone knows this. Like, once you start taking on certain roles, you're like, okay, now I'm forced to know the regs. But then you start realizing, like, man, if these guys that I was over, like, if my subordinates knew the regs, they could pull shit, like, on all sorts of people. It's like, if you walk in and you say, hey, you're not supposed to be doing this according to this, and this, unfortunately, in the VA, they're just like, I can just blow you off. Because I remember going to a lawyer and saying, hey, can I sue the VA over this? Can I sue someone? Because this is ridiculous. And they're like, did you lose a limb? Like, did you have, some type of just horrible thing happen to you? Like, and it was like, hey, yeah, I had them screw a gigantic piece of metal into my hand and leave it there for 2 years. And told me that there was nothing wrong with it, and they just made me move about my day. Like, I had to give up my tattooing career for this. I had to give up all this other like, even now, it's like I play piano, but I only play like 1 or 2 songs because it's like if I play for more than 30 or 40 minutes, my hand just starts just throbbing. And it's the same thing. It's just like I do what I can to get back to a semblance of my life. But when I look at how I would avoid this for the future veterans, for the future people, I'm sitting here going, man, I think you all should be fired. I think that we have the ability now with the tools that are at our disposal to take a lot better care of not just veterans, but people in general. That with our tools today that aren't being used because, Joe Schmo, dickhead over there needs a job because he needs to pay off his student loans that he got $400,000 in debt for. It's like, fuck you. I can replace you with an app. You need to go away now. It's like all this stuff where it's like, but we're going to lose that knowledge. It's like no different than we lost the ability to chuck papers at doors. We lost the knowledge of chucking newspapers at doors early in the morning because that's how people used to get their news. Did we lose that ability? That all of a sudden that just go away? Did we just, and I'm going, yes, the stupid stuff went away. No different than when we created the tractor to replace the plow. I'm just going, guys, there is a lot of mishaps that don't need to happen anymore. And the quality assurance of using the best tool for the job, that was, mandated as like number one priority for my military career. Like, hey, we want the best of the best of the best using the best of the best of the best tools. It's like, okay, well, now that you're out, hey, you get the fucked up tools with the fucked up losers that would give zero fucks about you. It's like, wow. Okay, well, here, how about this? That same amount of money that you're paying all these people for the VA program and all that bullshit, why don't you fire them all and then raise mine? And I'll just go pay for my own insurance. I'll go pay for my own medical bills because I don't need you paying this douchebag over here a 6-figure salary. I'd rather you just go ahead and take that gigantic pot of money and just give it to the people who earned it because I didn't just protect the VA fucking hospital. I protected them all. Okay? And that's sort of how I look at it, where it's just like, why am I still allowed, even as the veteran, as the guy who's gone back into the world of the U.S. citizen, just saying, hey, I should have a say in this, of how this is dispersed. It's like, no, you don't. You put me in charge. It's like, actually, I had nothing to do with that. I never voted for anybody, so how can you say that I chose this? They're like, oh, you chose it by not choosing. It's like, no, you gave me a fucked up system. This is the same. Hey, you have turd sandwich over here, or you have giant douche. And I'm going, no, I want an option C, motherfucker. It's like if I'm sitting there at a restaurant or I'm sitting there with any amount of choices and somebody says, oh, you only have these 2 options. You have dog food and lesser dog food. I'm going, no, I'm not eating here. I'm leaving. Goodbye. Give me my money. I'm out. I'm not going to give you money for this. Oh, no, you sat down. You owe me money. No, fuck you. I don't owe you shit. Right? So it's like the way I look at it is like this is just another fuck you to the military veteran. But I just go, if you look at the test bed, and this is why I always looking at the military as a test bed, because it really is a fun little representation of the country as a whole. Like if you look at the military and you go along those statistical graphics, and you sit there and you go, hey, we have umpteen people, right, from these different categories, from these different subgenres, from these different cultures, from these different, and you can see, hey, there is you know, Black America represented. There is, what's it called? Asian American representative. There is all these different cultures, color, creed, da da da. But we all wear the same uniform. We all have the same goal. We all sit there and say, hey, we have a whole different set of rules that we made as a culture, right? So it's funny when I sit there and go, no, I've never had to sit there and decide, hey, I'm a white, cisgender male ever. I never had to do that. And now all of a sudden, no, you say it because that's what you are. I was like, no, how about I'm just a guy that wants to be better than who he was yesterday. And it doesn't matter what my skin color is or how I use my genitals or any of that stuff, because I can still go read books despite, what those things are. I can still, amass a certain amount of information. I can still look for a better solution than the one I had yesterday. And so here I am saying, hey, here's a better solution. Cancel. If you're going to run around canceling comedians, you're going to cancel like all these other people. Why don't you cancel your fucking politicians already? Like you did this to Trump. And I'm going, if you did it to Trump, why don't you do it to everybody? Why don't you hold everybody to that same standard? And it's funny watching the Twitter nonsense and the yay nonsense and the silly, that stuff. I look at it, it's like, what was I saying? I think I was telling Crew Chief about this when you came in the last time, and I was like, watching Ye say what he was saying, cancel all the politicians, Ye 2024. What's so funny, like, hey, Crew Chief, have you ever heard of he was an old philosopher, Greek philosopher, his name was Diogenes. Have you ever heard of him? Like, he has a fascinating story. He was known as the father of cynicism. But what he would do is he would always walk around naked in the town. Like he would, he was very disgusting. Like everyone thought he was just crazy. And they would point at him and they would just call him crazy. Heard the name, not the story. Okay, so here's the story. It's really nuts, because by the end of the story, you had all the, the Greek politicians, the Greek kings, all these people that were trying to get their people to do stuff. But instead of listening to the kings and the people that represented the authority, everybody left and went and listened to Diogenes. Because so here's Diogenes, back, like he was a very brilliant philosopher. He was a brilliant politician. Actually, he was a senator. And then all of a sudden, he gives all that up. He throws all of his stuff away. He goes and he lives in the street. And he's just living there. And people are just they're wondering why he's doing this. So it gets people to ask him questions. And they're saying, where are you going to live? He's like, I'm going to live in this pot right here. And there was like this gigantic pot that was usually there to like hold water or whatever. But it was big enough for him to sit in. And that was it. He was like, this will be my home from now on. Right. And they were like, why are you doing this? It's like, because you guys are idiots and I can't be around you anymore. And he would just offend people here and there, everywhere. It was like, and people would say, be careful going talking to this Diogenes character, but because he's going to tell you how it is and he's going to tell you that you're an idiot. He tells everybody that they're an idiot. But anyway, time goes on, and of course, Greece starts having problems with these people, and these people, and they were like, oh, they're going to attack, or oh, they're going to do this, or they're going to do this, or hey, we have these two politicians yelling and screaming at each other. What's going to happen? There's all these sneaky things going about. But instead of going to them for the news or going to the town square for the news, they would all of a sudden they would see Diogenes doing something silly and stupid, like taking this pot and rolling it up a hill. And they'd be like, what are you doing, Diogenes? And he's like, yeah, I'm getting the F out of this town. But see how easy it was for me to move my house, and you guys have all that bullshit that you're dealing with? So have fun. I'm going to do me, but I already can see the writing on the walls. And then, of course, the town would get attacked, or the town would, suffer some horrible plight of plague or something. And so even though he would say these horrific things, and he had such a bad outlook on life according to what they were seeing, he was still right about a lot of stuff. And so watching Ye, and I'm going, you know what? He's right about a lot of stuff, but man, he comes off as batshit fucking crazy. He says a lot of silly things. And so I was getting this picture of Diogenes. I'm sitting there going, hey, you have this sort of bizarre philosopher. And even in that interview, what's his name? Alex Jones. He's like, dude, you're a savant on some sort. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. But I just denounce Hitler. I can't like Hitler. And so many people were just like, he's not explaining his point of view. But at the same time, I'm going, you have no idea what he's been looking at. You have no idea. I mean, he's also saying that everyone's a clone. Apparently, he told everyone the other day that Elon Musk is a clone, and that Eminem is a clone, and Hollywood is nothing but clones. And it's like, okay, well, how do we know that you're not a clone here to be some other, distraction? And that's what I'm saying is like, what does it benefit an AI to distract you? You know, and so Crew Chief says, yep, that's how I feel. And I'm going, you should feel this way. You should sit there and go, man, why is it that the craziest person in the room still sort of points at the biggest problems that we have? You know, when you talk about the people that are in power, you go, oh, it's the politicians. It's like, well, who owns the politicians? It's like, oh, the people in these companies. So I was like, well, who would be in charge of these companies? And they're like, these old white supremacist males. Oh, but not those Jews over there. Those Jews couldn't be that. And if you say anything bad about them, you're anti-Semite. It's like this victimhood mentality that they've been playing this game. Like Jews have been playing this game since as long as I've been alive. That if you say anything bad against them, then you hate them all as a people, right? And it's almost like everybody's jumping on that bandwagon. Like if you say something about me, you hate white people. It's like, oh, no. It's like, it's okay to hate white people. It's okay because they're supremacists and they put everything under their thumb. And it's like, well, how exactly do they do that? You know, do you want to follow that financial rabbit hole all the way back to where it comes from? What about the ritualistic rabbit hole? You want to follow that Christian rabbit hole all the way where it comes from? You want to follow where your Christianity came from? You want to talk about the Jewish faith and how much of a vital role it plays in the creation of the United States of America? You want to talk about the IRS and who is actually in charge of that and where that comes from? Since that is not a government entity that your White House nor any of your judicial branch, your legislative branch, or your executive branch cannot make rules for that particular entity. You want to talk about that? You know, it's just like this. To me, it's so weird how when you do just a little tiny bit of research, you start realizing that it's all just a big mess of shit. You're like, wow, this is just a massive corporate scam, you know? But at the same time, it's like, if you could get away with it, would you? And that's what I asked. It's like, I think we're all human, and I think we're all just squirrels trying to get a nut. And if we saw an opportunity that said, hey, here's your hustle, man, and you could walk away like a jabillionaire. But unfortunately, all these other people are going to lose. A lot of people would just say, hey, that's the race, man. That's race. And I'm just going, is it? Is that maybe why we call it racism? You know, because it is a competition. And people don't like to think about it like that. It's like, well, can we change the rules, of the game and say, hey, this is the team that we're on? Like if I state, hey, I'm on team people, there's no possible way I could be racist. And I would say, hey, this group of people over here that like to band over these rules, right? And these like interest tend to fuck over all these people over here, right? Because they have a better strategy. You have no problem if I say that when I say, hey, the Broncos defense is amazing and they use it to beat the shit out of all of their opponents. You have no problem when I say it that way. Or if I say, hey, Floyd Mayweather runs away like a little bitch in every single one of his fights, but yet for some reason people still say he's the best fighter ever. I don't like his strategy. I think it's a bitch strategy. I think it's stupid. You know, I'm just like, dude, if you're not going to stand and fight and you're going to win on points alone, don't walk around like you're an actual fighter. You're a guy who plays the game of boxing, but you're not a fighter, right? And so it's like, it just, to me, I sit here and I go, an AI would never look at it this way. An AI would just sit there and go, you are a variable, and this is how this variable sees its particular perception. And if it continues on that perception, right, then this is the outcome it's going to have. Like, imagine if the feed that you were getting, like instead of watching me, or watching YouTube video or getting on a scrolling feature that's constantly dumping in things to keep you attracted to it. And imagine if it was something that was helping you. Imagine if it got you excited about creating a new business model, or it got you excited about realizing that you didn't have to work anymore. And it said, hey, this is how I can get you to retirement in the next 5 years. Right? This is how I'm going to create a financial solution, not just for you, but for your kids. Right? This is how I'm going to make them not just smarter than you and your entire generation. I'm going to make them the smartest generation that could have ever possibly lived ever. Right? I mean, when you try to distill the desires of your typical everyday average human, it's just like, dude, I want, safety, security, a roof over my head, food on my table, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there going, these simple Maslow hierarchies of needs that your government comes along and says, oh, we'll take care of that. And they do a piss poor job at it, constantly scaring the piss out of you, telling you that the wolves are always at the door and they need more money. Always. The wolves are always at the door when it comes to politics. It's just like, you can't, hey, are we ever going to be at peace, you fucking assholes? Like ever? Or is that just wasn't sell for your corporation? Like, get it while you can, get it while you can. And I remember this was one of the first sales techniques that I was ever taught. One of the first ones I was ever taught was the fear of loss is a good motivator. 54 minutes to wait on this new call. Laughing my ass off. Yep. And that's it. It's like, honestly, you're on a Monday, man. Like, think about it. You're on a Monday, and I don't know where you're calling in from, but if you're on a Monday morning somewhere, I mean, I'm pretty sure these guys. And what's sad is call service representation and stuff. This is something that could easily be outsourced to people sitting in their houses. You could literally have a person for each member of the VA system. Having people call up and say, "Hey, I'm your personal representative, and I will be there 24/7 to deal with whatever problem you have because I've been assigned, to you. And if I don't answer the phone call when you call me, then I'll get fired. No different than an Apple employee. No different than any other customer service representative. It's like the difference is like you have no problem doing that for your Apple phone, but when it comes to the guy who protects everybody so that you could use your Apple phone or even have the enough money to buy your Apple phone without getting your throat slit, now that guy can go lie face down in the gutter. That guy can shut the fuck up. It's like the way that America treats its protectors is like, oh, here's your little scraps. I know we give all these other people scraps, but they pay into our system. They pay me, the politician, directly. You know what you veterans do? You don't really pay me directly. I just sort of walk over your corpses, and it sort of makes, this little squishy sound on my, my Louis Vuitton boots. It's like, when you actually sit back and you look at how they act, why would you ever think that these people had your best interest at heart? They don't, and they never will. And so I'm sitting there going, if they're willing to do this to us, the guys who were willing to go to war and stand in front of the bullets that were meant for other people, right? What do you think they're going to do to you? I think the saddest thing in the world, one of the saddest things in the world is sitting back and just going, hey, you know what? I'm still glad, and I can still be thankful for what I have. And it's like, am I tricking myself? Do I feel like I need more? And the answer is no. I don't feel like I need any more. So now that I have the things that I have, and I've come to the conclusions that I could live very happily the way that I'm living for the rest of my life without any worries or distractions or wondering what's going to happen. It's like, what do I want to do as a person? And now as an actual man of leisure, because this is what we used to call people like this. Like people who didn't have to work, who could go put their feet up, read whatever they want. We would call these people the men of leisure, right? Oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a man of leisure. I do whatever I want to expand my mind and my understanding of this place because that was my original, desire and question. It's like I wanted to know how this place works. And in the process of doing that, I'm starting to go, man, hey, I sort of figured out how you could fix all this shit with your politics. You could fix it tomorrow if you wanted to. Oh, that's right. You can't because you put the greedy people in charge. Way to go, America. Nice job. Yeah. Might want to fix that first. And this is why, the title of this particular stream, I said, this is something that your politicians will never talk about because it cancels them. And they can't do that. They can't talk about the tool that would make them obsolete. But what I find fascinating is in these engineering jobs or the medical jobs or the highly sophisticated scientific jobs, these people are working as hard as they can, like as hard as they can to create the newest, best ability for the human experience, to evolve ourselves in this way. And it's like, hey, this is what we wanted. We wanted to evolve ourselves in these exponential ways. But now that it's here, you're going, oh, no, we can't put that in. Oh, because people will be happy and then we can't scare them into buying shit. Let that sink in for about 5 seconds. Let it just sort of wash over you and just like, man, how much time and effort have I spent trying to get these bullshit fiat currencies to make the world go round? When it's like when you follow the money all the way back to where it comes from, it's like, yeah, sure, it had a place, but do we see ourselves as a species that can now, as Ye says, clone ourselves? Like we have the key to the full ability of the biological body, right? Where we don't need to procreate by, sex anymore if we don't want to. And yet we're sitting there going, nope, but we better pay our taxes. That's the only way we're going to get it. It's like, why do we have to have an upgrade in everything except for the stuff that counts? It's it's just fascinating to me. It reminds me of this old. It was one of the first memes I ever saw when it just really shook my brain. It was like a light bulb went off. Was I think it was this guy. It was a picture of a guy holding, what's it called, a rocket launcher, and it was this new one. It was a very sophisticated rocket launcher, and it had an arrow pointing to the place where he was shooting, and it says this person won't make $80,000 in his lifetime, right? And it says this person right here won't make $80,000 this year, and it's pointing at the soldier, and then it points at the rocket. This rocket alone cost $80,000. I mean, it just sort of, just puts everything back in perspective. You're just like, this is insane. This is just crazy. And when you're sitting there looking at the idea of somebody who can't even fathom making 80 grand in a lifetime, and you're just going, no wonder he has, such a low level of appreciation for life, because every day is a dog eat dog world for that person. And you just really go, man, is this, if instead of spending $80,000 on a rocket to blow up his whole existence, couldn't you spend $80,000 to give cell phones and the value of information to that entire, tribe of people? Just say, hey, I'm going to spend $80,000 and I'm going to set you guys up with the most technologically advanced system. And here's the tent that it can go in. And here's the satellite here's the SATCOM that you'll need to access it. Learn this. And this is how you learn this first. And this is how you're going to learn this, and this. And the saddest thing, like I said, it's like when I sit there and I put it through my skull, I'm just going, this is just insane. The level of, constantly saying that you're doing one thing and then giving the proof that you're not doing it. And then yet we're just going, oh, I guess somebody else will take care of it, I guess. I mean, they know that they're breaking the law. They know that they're doing the wrong things. I mean, it's getting reported on. So why is it? Where's the Oh, they did the investigation. Oh, did something come of it? Yeah, it did. And nothing happened to them. Ever. Oh, but something did happen to that one guy who wanted to speak out against him. One thing definitely happened to, I don't know, Edward Snowden. That one thing that happened to Assange. That one thing that happened to Epstein. Yeah, speak out against your politicians. It would be great times for you, especially if you have something that is directly tied to them personally. That's nothing. A single flight cost about tens of thousands of dollars. If they cut back on flights by 5%, we could fund the VA for 20 years. Yeah, and that's just it. It's like when you sit back and you look at the one thing that we are told as the military member all the time, and you know this because everyone gets this briefing, to look out for, wait for it, fraud, waste, and abuse, right? FWA, baby. Like, you're always looking around for it, but then you actually get to talk to these people that are in charge of the budget committees and stuff, and you're going, man, that's a weird 60-inch flat screen that just got put into the conference room. Like, is that not fraud, waste, and abuse right there? Why did we need a 60-inch plasma flat screen that costs, $10,000? And they're like, oh, no, we had to finish up the budget. Meaning they had to spend this much money. Otherwise, they wouldn't, get their raises next quarter, or that next pay cycle, or that next fiscal year for the unit or for the squadron. And you're just going, no way. Please don't tell me that's how it works. Please don't tell me that that's what you guys are doing. And you're just like, I remember having to, go around the squadron and being asked, like, hey, do you think, Sergeant, do you think we need tech upgrades? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, have you looked at anything that you'd like to have that would make the job easier and better? I'm like, well, there's always stuff that's brand spanking new, but if you're talking about something that's going to make this, that we don't need a warehouse anymore full of, junk, because the problem is we have tons and tons and tons of junk there. Like, I remember every mission we would go out on, we'd come back, with all of our stuff, but we would leave pallets and pallets and pallets of just grade A equipment just sitting there. I mean, I remember we sat down once and we talked about all the Cat 5 cable that we would run, while we were out there building up these like mobile places for comms and stuff. And when we leave, like, we break down the tents, we put them all away, we're done, we're out of there. But instead of grabbing the wire, which has copper in it, which is very valuable, when we started adding up how much one of these copper reams actually cost, we're going, man, did we just leave like almost $100,000 worth of copper just sitting there. And I just remember just going, man, why? I mean, if they're just going to throw it away, man, I'll go take it and scrap it. I mean, I guarantee you I can find somebody online that's like, hey, I got $100,000 worth of copper wire here. I'll sell it to you for $60,000. Here you go. Since you were throwing it away anyway, you know? And that's like I said, it's like the way that this government treats things. It's just infuriating. One wheel and a tire on a B-52 bomber is $62,000. Doesn't surprise me. But it's also like, you notice how to, like, if you are a military contractor saying, hey, I'm going to sell you stuff, all of a sudden that same, roll of toilet paper that's John Wayne style toilet paper that rips through your butthole, right? That one roll of toilet paper costs like, $600. And it's like, dude, you spent $600 on a roll of toilet paper, or like $20,000 on a box of MREs, and you want to scream your face off. You're just like, how did you do that? And you're just going, oh, it's all about, who washed whose hand, who's paid for whose campaign, who's invested in whose business, which politician wants to funnel this money into a business that they are receiving a stock price exchange for. Insert bullshit Nancy Pelosi nonsense right here. Which is another thing, I guess, is back in the news, is Pelosi, the whole Pelosi, like, getting assaulted in his house thing, and the story isn't adding up, and DAs are lying for so-and-so, and it's like, I could give a rat's ass about them as personal people because they're already degenerates as far as I'm concerned. They're politicians, they lie for a living. Like, I don't care who you are. There's no such thing as a trustworthy politician. These people are sitting there going, oh, everybody come to me, and I get to decide which bid gets honored. Oh, fuck. That was the worst part. How dare the military go cheap on toilet paper? That's how I do. They were monsters, and we were slaves. Yeah, it's weird. I have to admit, though, it's like, with this ability, that I have, I'm so glad for my career in the military. I was so happy for it. And going back and just pointing at this, it's like, I know the vast majority of people, when I point at it, won't know how to read this. And I'm just going, but you know what it is. And that's all that matters to me. It's like a lot of people don't know what this is or what it took to have to wear that for 2 years. But, they respect it. They go, oh my gosh, I don't think I could ever do that. I'm like, yeah. Same thing with the Eagle Scout. It's like, if I were to put up my education here, it's just like there wouldn't be enough room on the screen to point out all the classes and all the teachers and all that bullshit that I've had to go through, where I'm sitting there just going, no, it was a fun, beautiful experience. But now that I have this education, now that I can, because I said this to the same people back at USF, I was like, why are your teachers still here now that we have the internet? Everything's going online. Like, say, for example, you were a badass teacher. Look at Jordan Peterson right now. You could hate the guy. You could call him a douchebag. I don't care. He says normal stuff that I heard back here as a Boy Scout. That's all he's saying. He's saying, just be trustworthy, do honorable things. Don't be an asshole to people. That's all he's saying. And yet, the way that he presents it with his ability as a professor, as a good orator, right, as a good speaker, as a good presenter of information, he just went off and made how many millions and millions and millions of dollars selling books and just walking around and saying, hey, these are these people here that like what I'm saying. It's like everybody likes going to the psychology department because they get to a little, key to the inside of their own minds, right? Imagine if all the great psychologists that were just sitting there regurgitating bullshit all of a sudden went out and said, hey, I couldn't get a grant to go down this road of psychology. I couldn't get the school to pay for this new fringe understanding. But you know what? I went out and paved my own way. I went out and said, now that I have this new tool to go out on YouTube or go out on Twitch or go out there, this is one of the reasons that I picked the word original Twitcher, because I was like, what if it's not a professor? What if it's not this thing that you're used to? What if it's something completely different that say, hey, I'm going to say things that are going to make sense to you, and you're going to sit there and go, why aren't my politicians thinking this way? Why aren't other people thinking this way? And it's like, man, this guy does come off sort of as an asshole, but he also says he doesn't want my money. So what's his deal? What's his game? What's his play? It's like, dude, my play is to sit here and just tell you that a tidal wave of technology is about to slam into the human experience that you can't comprehend right now. And that I had a firsthand seat or a front row seat and a firsthand knowledge of this type of experience. And I'm going, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be wonderful. And your government, the way it's set up right now, doesn't want you to know this. They don't want you to know this because it's game over for them. It's game over for democracy. You're not going to need it anymore. Once you are now observed 100% of your time, right? Knowing that the person that's observing you is not a person. It's not like you. It doesn't have those petty ideas of envy. Like, oh, I watched this guy. Oh, he came in there and took an Instagram of himself in the mirror, and he's huge and he's massive and he's jacked and people liked him and da 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 da. I, as the AI, want that too. It's not going to have that bullshit desire like you do. It's not going to care. It's going to sit there and go, hey, I'm trying to get no different than we do with our animals, with our pets. It's going to say, I just want my dog to jump through the hoop. That's all I want my dog. And the dog gets a certain amount of happiness when it does the thing that I ask it to do. Right? We're the dogs in the situation as the humans. And this AI is going to be like, how can I make this a better human? No different than you look at your dog and say, hey, how can I make this a bigger, better, happier dog? And putting it in that, raw understanding. I know for a lot of people, like, I don't want to be a dog. I don't want to be this. It's like, would it make you feel better if we were all dogs? Why don't you go watch a Pixar movie where, like The Life of Pets or something, and then you'll get it. Go watch, some movie about, a person being anthropomorphized, into a situation where they're an animal and they have to look at things from a new perspective. The fun part is this AI that's going to come online that's already doing half the work for us anyway. Like, there's a program that's delivering that note to your ear. It's not me. It's not like I'm packaging the note and coming in and giving it to you and being like, here you go, enjoy the notes. I mean, the vast majority of the heavy lifting of delivering this to your ear was done by the research and development and the software and the design, to the point now where it's just easy. Another beautiful concept of this is the printing press, the idea of how you mint a coin, right? If you ever go look at old coins, they're fascinating because not one of them is exactly like the other. But when you look at modern coins and how they were able to print them with such a sophisticated concept like that, the hydraulic press that, is able to make this thing. And imagine that ability given back to the first guy who ever said, hey, I'm going to smith a coin. He would have fainted knowing that was the possibility that was going to come along in the future. And I said this yesterday too. Like, I watched this movie last night called Spirited, and it had Ryan Reynolds in it and Will Ferrell, and it was The Christmas Carol. This was one of my father's favorite movies, but I'm sitting here watching it, and it's done all in this sort of bizarre, like, nonsensical musical style where there's a lot of songs and da-da-da. And what I thought was hilarious is Mormons are going to just fawn over that. And I'm just sitting there watching this show because Mormons, they're highly attuned to the musical background. They enjoy the ideas of drama and art and theater and da-da-da. And I'm sitting here watching this movie, and it's The Christmas Carol, which is also Dickens. And it was funny to watch it and to see how they shifted the story and the way that they shifted the story. How, the ghost of Christmas Present, how he gets his job, right? And it was, to me, I'm sitting there going, this is a fascinating perception. And it showed me that it's not that we don't have the ability to tell stories anymore. That's not what happened to Hollywood. It's like when you're sitting there and you're watching it, not one time was I sitting there going, oh, well, we have to, put our representation in here. Oh, we have to push the message of bullshit here. We have to do this. We have to do that. It was like, no, this is a classic story with the only thing that should have been in there were the actual upgrades we could look forward to as the human species, not as the black human species or the, Arab human species or whatever. It didn't matter, and it's fun when you go back and you actually look at good, great, wonderful storytelling that was completely absent of the bullshit politics. Over the last couple of years, that's all you've seen. And I've decided I'm actually going to expand a little bit. Starting next year, I'm going to move over into the art category here on Twitch. It's not that I'm going to get rid of this. I like politics, and I think I'll always have a home here, and I always want to come in here because this is going to be how I explain things to my son. But I have all other talents as well. I was able to, like I said, I was a tattoo artist for a long time. And then before that, I was able to sit down and it was something that I always had. I always had the ability to draw and make art. But the things that I want to make now aren't so much an art form of just visual art. But I want to make something that, given new tools, that I can call it something new. And in a way, it's going to be something that, it's not a movie. It's not a song. It's not poetry. It's not, I was like, what if there are genres out there that can be made now? Well, like, what if the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle, all of, the stuff, that we see spliced together here and there. It's like, what if we were to use it in a different way? What if we were to be able to access the full potential of something like deepfake? Make your own story, make your own, setup, where you sit there and you say, hey, I don't need to pay an actor now. All I needed was their image. All I needed was their mannerisms. All I needed was how they said things that one way. I mean, notice how, and this, what gave me this sort of bizarre idea, something I've been messing around with before, but it was the concept of the Easter egg, how there's always this callback in movies nowadays. And in this movie, Spirited, you have Will Ferrell, who is, coming out as he's not a ghost anymore. He's now a corporeal form. And as he's walking around this Christmas party, he sees somebody who's dressed like an elf from the movie Elf that he had played in, that he had played the elf from, the North Pole. And he walks right up to him and he says, "You look stupid." And he says it in this very aggressive, offensive way. And the reason that it was funny is because he himself had played that. And I sort of looked at it and I'm going, but someone took it, they put it in a new movie, and they were able to make fun of it. And the actor himself that made that character popular and that we accepted was able to make a call back to it. And she's like, man, this, in a way that still made us laugh. And I'm not sitting here talking about things that make you laugh. I'm not talking about I'm not talking about comedy, drama, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about something that is just a pure form of expression. No different than what I do when I come in here and I play piano. It's like, I have no idea what I'm going to play sometimes. I come in here, I pick a backing track that I've never heard, and then I just play over the top of it. And so it's like, what would happen if I went and I grabbed a bunch of movies, that made me the person that I am, the stories that made me who I am? Because before this generation, people lived and died. Their stories were pretty, like, there's the goofy story, the fictional stories, but then there's the religious stories. And it's the religious stories that need to make you who you are. And I'm just like, those stories are old and stupid. It's the same thing I said about the hymns. I was like, these hymns are old and stupid. Like, we could make better forms of expressing ourselves to this place, whatever this place is. And this isn't about God. This isn't about finding God. This isn't about, anything other than, hey, I think I have something else that's rolling around in my head that I'd like to, maybe hit the button on. So, that's a little story about what I'm planning on doing. Oh, fuck. That was the worst part. How dare the military go to? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm reading something else from you, crew chief. Anyway, I'm looking at 51 minutes here. Just wanted to pop in and say, hey, I think I'm going to start expanding out into other territories. You're good, my dude. I swear, every time you say that, or it's like, I just want to give you, was it Esquire's? I was busy with like 5 calls. You do you, man. Every time he's like, "You're good, my dude." Like, I'm waiting for you to be like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, or where it's like, it's like, oh wait, it's like I want to get some Keanu Reeves, like, and what's his name? I know his last name is Esquire. Anyway, that's who you remember. He's like, "You're all good, my dude." Hell yeah, Bill and Ted were awesome. And see, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, Bill and Ted was a great story. It was an amazing story that had nothing to do with politics, had nothing to do with anything except for telling a good fucking story. Keanu Reeves is immortal. Yeah, he's been cloned at least 7 times, of course. I mean, think about it. Keanu, Kanye. Maybe they were cloned in the same vat. Yeah, but that's just it. It's like, if we could tell stories now, maybe that's something that we should look into. Maybe we should all look into hey, if it's your turn to tell stories and you don't need this gigantic Hollywood production in order to do it, you don't need any of this. Like if you could go and take the deep fake and say, I wonder what it would be like if I made a Superman, but Clint Eastwood was the Superman. You know, not old Clint, like pruny Clint Eastwood like right now, or but Clint Eastwood was Superman. Or say, for example, you wanted anybody to play that role. And then instead of the full-on Superman from, you know, what's it called? Oh, gosh, the guy ended up in the wheelchair. You got me stuck on Keanu Reeves. There it is. His name is Christopher Reeves. And it's like, instead of having, you know, Christopher Reeves, you could sit there and have Clint Eastwood play in that character and in that role. And instead of having what's-her-face, the no-name crazy person who played the love interest, Lois Lane, it's like you could put anybody you want in there. You could put Diana Ross in there if you wanted to. I mean, you have so much ability now to imagine if you created an online way, and where it wasn't a game. You really could do this. Like, hey, you could watch a movie, or you could go over here with a program that could play any actor, any person, any or even yourself. You could even sit there and say, hey, I have enough video references to make my own deep fake, and you could be the Superman. Imagine the level of entertainment that you're going to get out of that. You know, where you could mix and match the characters in these stories. And so, no different than the way it used to be when you used to read a book, or how they used to say on a psychological level, you do see yourself as the character sometimes. You know, I'm just saying, well, what if you actually could? What if you wanted to play Harry Potter and you could watch yourself as Harry Potter? I mean, that's just one of many things. And then all of a sudden, I take that one step further and I talk about VR and augmented realities. And I'm going, imagine if you could actually step into that world. And would you want to, if you wanted the full authentic experience, would you be willing to take on the psychological distortions that someone like Harry Potter would have to have gone through? You know, would you be okay with that? You know, how would you tolerate that? You know, and even better question, how do you know you're not doing that right now? How do you know that you're not fulfilling some bizarre version of a simulation theory? Harry was a bitch. Ron's little sister, though. Now we are talking about some real power. Yeah. I always, you know, aligned myself with the villains. I always thought the villains were the best. You know, like when I sit there and I was like, dude, that's, you know, who's in charge when you can't even mention his name. That's why I was like, dude, that's power right there. And I think it was George Carlin who used to say, is like, you know who's in charge of you by the people you're not allowed to make fun of. Yeah. So either way, that should end up, you know, this particular stream. Thanks for hanging out with me, Crew Chief. And if there's anybody else that's sitting there in the chat that's just lurking, and you want to follow, that's all I'm pretty much gonna ask you for, or at least extend the invitation. You don't have to do anything. You do you, boo boo, is this guy's motto. But I'm so glad that if you wanted to come in here, hang out, say the things that you want to say here, you can say whatever you want. I don't care, because that's the way that I believe that the world should work. You should be able to say whatever you want, and if you can't handle it, well, sounds like you need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what this world means to you. Other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful Monday. I'm gonna go try and hopefully, you know, it was a little weird, you know, taking off this morning. Like everything just seems sort of like out of place, but we got to have those days so that we can compare and contrast them with the great, wonderful ones that are going to come down the pipeline too. Other than that, you guys have an amazing Monday. I'm going to play this funky groove guitar backing track from Elevated Jam Tracks, and yeah, we'll get out of here. You too, Crew Chief.